Now we will be constructing the niche that goes inside of the left house section. Now I have, I'm looking at page 2 on our cutting guide, and down here we've got our niche frame and back. We've got 2 of those, and niche spacers. Those are the 3 little 1/4 inch strips I have over here to the side. And I also have 2 strips that are 1 3/8 inch wide that we'll use to make the boxes for the size of the boxes of all the little niches and drawer openings. So that's our cutting. And then to see what to do with the niche frame back and front, we're going to turn to page T6, template 6, which lays out the cutting for the niche front and back. So what we're going to start with is our 2 pieces that are 3 inches wide by 10 3/4 inch tall. And then we need to have a a 45-degree angle that matches our left side A. And here is left side A. And if you recall that up here on this top here, it's 7 3/4 inch to this little peak here. So what we're doing here is, because this is 10 3/4 inches tall, we can measure down 3 inches on the top left and draw a diagonal, and that'll leave us with a remainder of 7 3/4 inch here on the side. We connect that diagonal, and then we'll have our roof pitches that will match left side A. So how this will go together is the frame front will go in front of the back, obviously, and then the little openings are framed by some of this 1 3/8. We'll make those little boxes, and that's how this comes together. So step 1 is to make that angle. Step 2, on just the niche front, we'll cut these openings as indicated, coming up 1 7/8 inch from the bottom. All of our spacing here is 3/8 of an inch, so it's 1 inch for each opening and 3/8 of an inch in between. And then when we get to this top kind of odd shaped piece, it's 1 inch on the left side and 2 inches on the right side, and then just diagonally connecting. They're 1 inches wide and centered. Because this piece is 3 inches wide, we have 1 inch border on each side and a 1 inch opening in the middle. So that's step 2, is to cut the frame front like that. And then step 3 is, now that we've got that cutting done, we're going to trim a 1/16 of an inch from the bottom of both pieces. And that's because when this goes into the house, it sits on top of the base, which is inset, and because the base is a 1/16 of an inch thick from the medium weight chipboard, we need to allow for that and trim off the bottom here. So I'm going to do that trimming, and then I'm going to prep the front for pattern paper, and we'll be back to do the pattern paper. So I've prepped my niche frame front with score tape in preparation for adding the pattern paper, which you can see I've put out here to the side. I'm using, it's called Charmed, I'm sure. I'm going to use the paisley side for the front of the niche frame. And I'm going to cut it exactly the same size as the niche frame. So I'll just add it on here, join it, and then cut my openings, and then I'll be back. So I finished attaching the pattern paper to the front of the niche frame, and I've also trimmed out the one that is going to actually be a little opening to decorate with some 1/8 inch black cardstock. The other ones I'm leaving plain because the drawer fronts will cover these places. And so this we're ready to set aside for now. And we can turn our attention to making the little boxes that go around those openings. And so I took my 2 pieces of 1 3/8 inch chipboard and I cut them according to what the instructions say here. I need 14 at 1 by 1 3/8, 1 at 2 by 1 3/8, and 1 by 1 7/16 by 1 3/8. Now the other thing I'm going to do, to make these boxes, is just a simple butt join of the pieces here, but instead of just putting construction strips in between each one, I've cut some pieces of cardstock that are the 1 3/8 inch wide, and for these smaller boxes they're about 3/8 inch or 1/2 inch longer than the total size, so they're like 4.5 inches long. And that way I can just use that on the inside to join the pieces here, keep them nice and straight. Just putting them end to end here, and then I'll give that a good burnish. And then I can fold on each one of those intersections, including that last one. Just fold it right up to the edge. If you think this is too much left on the end, you can trim that back. And then it's again just a matter of folding this last edge, folding each edge in. First the left one, and then this right one should butt right up against it. And you can burnish that, and you get a nice little square box that's nicely finished on the inside. So I'll repeat that for my other boxes. Of course, the one that is this one that has this edge, that will be a little bit different, but the same kind of theory for constructing. I finished adding all of the little boxes to the back of the front niche frame, and so we're ready to start putting this together. Now because this is such an unusual shape, I think I'll put this paper that's going to go behind the little niche on before I construct it. And so to mark where that goes, I'm just going to hold the 2 pieces together and get them approximately correct, and then take my pencil and trace around the back so I know where to place my paper. And I cut my paper 1.5 inches by 2.5, which allows about 1/4 inch extra on all the sides. And this paper has some writing on it, so I'd like to keep it as straight as possible. So I'm just going to make myself a little guideline here to put that paper on with, so that I can get it straight. And I'm just going to make a little 3/4 inch line here, because if I cut this 1.5 inches wide, then I know that since this back is 3 inches wide, I would have 3/4 on this side. So that's where I'm going to place my paper. I'm just using one of the pages from the 6-inch pad that goes with this paper collection. So then now I have the backing paper inside of there. So now we want to join the 2 pieces together. Now, because this is the same width as the whole front, I'm going to glue on here, but I'm also going to put some hinges on here just to hold everything together. So I've just cut some to the length of each of these sides, and then I'm just lining the edge of that even with the edge of the boxes, and supporting from inside of those boxes while I burnish. And I'll do the same thing on this other side. Now we want to, when we go to put this together, make sure that we've got this square and plumb, and you can use, I happen to have a handy little level here which will help me to do that. Now if you don't have something like that, you could take a box or something that you know has straight square sides and hold it up against the unit to make sure that everything stays straight and plumb. So I'm going to remove my backing strips here. Put some glue around my openings. I don't know if the glue is absolutely necessary. You could put a joining strip at the top and the bottom and probably forego the glue if you felt that was going to be a little tricky to deal with. And I'm going to use my mat as well to try to keep things aligned. Before I engage the strips, I'm going to make sure everything is aligned left and right and up and down. Just using the bubble on my level there. And I think I have that pretty well engaged, so I'm going to engage these joining strips here on the sides. And I'll just let that dry for a minute. The last little prep step that I want to do here is to add our 1/4 inch strips. Now the purpose of these is so that when we insert the niche assembly into the left house, that the assembly stays 1/4 inch back from the wall, and so that when it goes into the wall like this, instead of being right up against the wall, there'll be 1/4 inch space in between. And that allows for the depth of the little drawer fronts and drawer pulls. So that's the purpose here. And so I've cut some strips, and for the ones on these 3 sides, I'm just going to go ahead and add them on with some glue. And I think I'll put the glue on the edge of the strip. So for this final side here, I still have my 1/4 inch chipboard strip, but I've added a one of our cardstock joining strips to it. I've just trimmed off the excess on the side where the joining strip is. And when it goes on, the joining strip comes on the top like so. So that this will be used to attach this unit to the side A of the house. So again, we'll just put our glue on the edge of the 1/4 inch strip. And I'll put this in place and hold it until it dries. So this long strip is challenging to hold in place while it dries. So what I've done is I've cut a couple of my joining strips and trimmed off one side so that it is just under 1/4 inch. And then I can use these strips to come here on the side. Actually, they could be a 1/4 inch long, and just kind of can help hold that in place. You could do this on, if you haven't had challenges with the other sides, you could do that as well for them. Okay, that's going to be held in place real well now. I know I keep saying the last thing. Well, here's really the last prep step is on the back here. We again want to have a couple of joining strips to put this in place. I've cut one the length of the bottom, and we'll just put that down here on the bottom on the inside, and then one on this shorter tall edge. I'll get those burnished. So we'll let all of this thoroughly dry here, and that's our niche assembly for the left side of the house.